All right, we will go ahead and get started. Thank you. Roll call, please, Mr. Checkett.
Sure thing. Commissioner Chalet,
Here.
Commissioner Stringer,
Here.
Commissioner Knack,
Here.
Commissioner Whitehouse,
Here.
Commissioner McCaffrey,
Here.
Chair Sarter.
Here.
It's Cody. Won't let me.
That's gonna get annoying. We'll let Cody go through that. Any additions or deletions from the agenda? Mr. Byrd?
No additions or deletions from the agenda.
There he is. Okay. Anyone wish to speak on any non-agenda items from the public tonight? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from April 7th?
I move we approve the minutes from April 7th meeting.
I'll second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Chalet,
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Knack,
Yes.
Commissioner Whitehouse,
Yes.
Commissioner McCaffrey,
Yes.
Commissioner Carmen,
Yes.
Chair Sarter.
Yes. Okay, we will move on to the new business. We're gonna be considering a preliminary plat for Sage Farms Filing 1, and when Mr. Byrd is ready, we'll turn it over to staff for a presentation.
Thank you, Chairman Sarter. Cody Byrd, Planning Director. Nice to see you all this evening. We'll note for the record that Commissioner Carmen arrived. Thank you. So I'm still working with my laptop to figure out the muting option here. It's struggling. But as we're diving in here, Ms. Brittany Lenore, our Planner 3, is going to be presenting the first agenda item. I just wanted to real quickly remind the Planning Commission this is a preliminary plat. On a preliminary plat, it is a public hearing item. I'd like to briefly go over the public hearing procedures and make sure that everyone attending knows how that process works. So on a public hearing, staff will provide a presentation of the agenda items and introduce the topic being considered. We'll have the applicant, if they have any additional topics they would like to share, they can introduce that at that time. If the Planning Commission has any technical questions, just clarifying what was presented, we can answer those questions at that time. We'll then open up the floor for public comments. Each person wishing to speak can provide up to 3 minutes of testimony. And following all the testimony being heard, we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll turn it back over to the applicant if they have any, if they wish to respond to any of the comments, and then staff will provide any closing remarks. At that time, the Planning Commission will then do deliberations and have a motion and vote. To kick things off on a public hearing, I'll also ask for disclosure of any conflicts of interest or ex parte communications. Ex parte communications or communications or information received outside of a public hearing process. So we'll ask for that in just a moment. Are there any questions on the procedure for a public hearing? Yes, ma'am.
So if we don't ask a question prior to public comment, then we can't ask for clarifying questions after that?
We can clarify, we can respond to clarifying questions at any point.
Okay.
So yeah,
Just thinking if there was public comment that raised something we hadn't thought of and we wanted to comment on that or ask a question about that.
Yeah, so you can ask questions throughout the public hearing process. One of the things we do try to avoid is creating a back and forth dialogue with a public commenter because they only get one opportunity to speak. So part of the public hearing process is being diligent that you don't create that back and forth commentary. Thanks for the question. Are there any others? Okay, then at this time, I would ask for any conflicts of interest or any ex parte communications, if any.
I would just like to disclose that I do know Darren. We work for builders, developers, but I have no interest in his company, no gains from his company.
Thank you. Are there any others?
None.
None.
Very good. Thank you. If it's all right with the chair and the commission, I would turn it over to Ms. Brittany Lenore to do a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. I sent you my presentation. My computer's not working. I apologize.
Well, it's not good when neither one of our computers are working. I couldn't get mine to mute, so we had all the reverb and I exited. I will rejoin that meeting and hopefully get that mute to work. While I'm doing that, would you like to begin with the background information that's not related to your slides?
Yes. So my name is Brittany Lenore. I'm a Planner 3 with the Wellington Planning Department. And as Mr. Byrd mentioned, we will be talking about the preliminary plat for Sage Farms Filing 1. Sage Farms is a comprehensive master plan development, and it's for the land encompassing around 293 acres on east of Highway 1 and south of G.W. Bush Avenue to County Road 58. The Sage Farms planned unit development will be done as a phased project. And so for this first phase, the focus will be primarily on a single-family residential area. Sounds like our recording may have stopped, so I'm going to stop. I can also send the slides to Mr. Checkett.
I think they're watching.
It literally says I'm muted, but it won't mute. That's also muted. I don't know what else to do when it says it's muted and it won't mute.
Anything but keep talking.
Drop some water on the keyboard.
So, Sage Farms Filing 1. I apologize for technology.
Did that make a difference?
No.
Seems a little odd to call it 10 minutes into the meeting, but should we call recess and give it a couple minutes to try to figure this out?
I'm 30 seconds away.
Okay.
I appreciate that thought.
Yeah.
Might take you up on it.
Okay.
if we need to.
Just give me the nod.
Well, it sounds like we're not getting any more,
Yeah, the reverb's gone.
but that's fine. I can talk.
Should be we'll double check. Is it still recording?
Yeah, it's recording.
Okay.
Solved.
I think we're gonna give it a go.
All right.
Thanks
Nice
for your
job, staff.
patience.
Nice job.
We'll start over since now we have our visual. As I previously mentioned, Planner 3, Brittany Lenore, Town of Wellington Planning Department. And so tonight we're going to be discussing the preliminary plat for filing 1 of Sage Farms Development. If we can go to the next slide. Okay. So this is the conceptual master plan for Sage Farms. This is a comprehensive plan for the 293 acres at the east of Highway 1, south of GW Bish, and to County Road 58. The Sage Farm Plan Unit development will be done in phases. So this first phase will focus on a portion of that single-family residential, which is that yellow portion in the middle and along Highway 1. So it'll be more north towards GW Bush. Future phases, as we can see on this conceptual plan, will include more single-family residential along with multifamily, that's that purple, and commercial, which is the orange. So if we go to the next slide. So for some background context, in 2024, the Sage Farm annexation, the establishment of the planned unit development zoning district, and vested development rights were approved by the Board of Trustees. And so tonight, the Planning Commission will review the preliminary plat. The purpose of the preliminary plat is to provide an overall master plan for the proposed development. So the type of plans you will see with your preliminary plat are preliminary, including preliminary grading, drainage, utility, landscaping. If it gets approved, recommended by the Planning Commission, passed through the board, then the developer will work on the final plat, and that would be coming back to you. And that's when you're going to have more technical standards, final documents, construction plans, and profiles. So tonight will be the preliminary plat. If we can go to the next slide, please. So in reviewing the preliminary plat, the Planning Commission should consider the findings for approval. Those findings talk about the plat's consistency with the land use code and comprehensive plan, and the land use mix proposed and how that furthers the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. That's related to the town character, contributions to the town housing supply and economic development, development of parks and open space, protection of environmental quality, and enhanced opportunities for cultural, historical, education, and human services. Next slide, please. In addition to these other findings must be made that the utility design is adequate, that the transportation design meets the goals of the comprehensive plan in regards to connectivity and walkability, that any identified negative impacts are appropriately mitigated, and that there's a need for this type of development within the town, and that it furthers the town's goals. Next slide, please. So after hearing testimony presented during the public hearing portion of this item, the Planning Commission may recommend approval with conditions or denial. If the commission feels like additional information is needed or changes are needed to adequately address the findings for approval, you also may consider continuing the item to a later date. So as I mentioned, Sage Farms, this is filing 1. So in this first phase, you'll see those blue parcels. Those are outlots. Outlots are platted as unbuildable with this phase, and they're intended to be replatted in the future and developed in the future. You'll see that green parcel along Highway 1, and that is platted for an existing agricultural operation yard. And so that will allow that use to remain there for the time being until that portion of the development is redeveloped. And then tonight, the part that we're primarily focused on is that yellow portion, which is the single-family lots, the 241 single-family plotted lots. So next slide, please. When looking at the intended land use for single-family homes, these lots are similar in size to the surrounding existing residential neighborhood like Sage Meadows, Mountain View Ranch, and the Knolls. Next slide, please. when looking at this proposal's consistency with the planned unit development zone designation and the comprehensive plan, it is consistent with both. The zoning, as I mentioned, is a planned unit development, so it's kind of a master plan for the area. And this area is specifically called out in that planned unit development as a single-family zone, which single-family is supportive in a single-family zone. And the comprehensive plan is similar. This whole Sage Farms, 293 acres, has a mix of commercial, low and medium density residential, and parks and open space. And the plan unit development, the proposal is consistent with that as well. And again, with that platted agricultural lot, that is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the town's goals to preserve agricultural heritage of the town. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned previously, the preliminary plat includes preliminary utility designs. And so the plans include water, sanitary sewer, and stormwater infrastructure. And water and sewer lines are adequate to meet the needs of this phase of the development, as well as setting up for future commercial and multifamily platted lots. There is also adequate fire hydrant spacing for fire protection. And there are existing groundwater wells that will be utilized, which will provide an alternative water supply source for the development. The developer is working with the North Pooter Irrigation Company to also close a ditch lateral, which will improve safety and aesthetics along GW Bush. A preliminary landscape plan was also included, and you'll see it's a little hard to tell from here at least. That red line that runs north-south through the development is the proposed trail, and it'll go through 2 proposed pocket parks. And then the blue line off to the left side is a 10-foot detached walk, and that's next to commercial development. And so that'll provide a sense of separation and safety for when those lots are further developed to commercial. If people want to walk to those areas, it'll provide the comfortable infrastructure to allow that. Also, something of note, there is an interim pond proposed at the south portion of this platted development right now, the 241 lots. That interim pond is for this phase, but as it's redeveloped, that will go away. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned before, the 2 pocket parks, you'll see a screenshot of both of those. The top one is at the entrance of the site off of GW Bush, and it's a walking trail, contemplative garden that goes past irrigation ponds and goes through the neighborhoods. And there is a pocket park proposed within the middle of the development, and that'll have a playground as well as picnic areas. And the Parks, Recreation, Open Space Trails Board did review this in April, and they did provide feedback on it. So they reviewed the same thing that was in your packet, and they appreciated the shortened crossings that are proposed on the 2 roads next to that pocket park, as well as the trail alignment. And the developer did confirm that for this phase, the ownership will be, and the maintenance will be done by the homeowners association, not the town. Thank you. So when looking at transportation, the adjacent roads are designated as arterial roadways, and improvements will be done to those to accommodate the proposed single-family and future multifamily and commercial uses. Along with improvements to the road, like I mentioned before, there will be that 10-foot detached walk. And so that will improve walkability and connectivity for the current proposed single-family as well as future commercial and multifamily. Next slide, please. So based off of the findings for approval, staff does recommend forwarding a recommendation to approve the preliminary plat to the Board of Trustees. And thank you for your time tonight. I'm available for any questions you may have, as well as Mr. Byrd is here as well.
All right, I'll start. Just a quick question, Mr. Byrd, regarding the packet and the letter from the Fayette family, if you wouldn't mind touching on that, just for some clarification, who they are in relation to the project, just kind of some background so everybody's aware why that got included in the packet.
Sure, thanks, Chairman. We did receive correspondence from an adjacent property owner pretty late in the process from the Fate Family Limited Partnership. They own about some 200+ acres of land south of County Road 58. They have reached out in response to the notice of public hearing that was sent to adjacent property owners. And we included their correspondence in the packet so you could see it. But effectively what they're asking for are the planning considerations that we look at routinely anyhow. They mention drainage, utility design, traffic impacts, and most of their comments were relating to, don't forget about us, we're an adjacent property that may want to be developed at some point in the future, and we don't want to be in a position where the town forgot to plan ahead for us. And that's a very paraphrased version of that. But their correspondence was well received by town staff. These are things that we do think about in terms of not allowing drainage impacts to adversely impact downstream properties, that transportation's looked at holistically to make sure that adjacent parcels aren't just left holding the bag when everything else around them is fully developed and they have a bunch of improvements that are expensive that limit their ability to develop. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of what that letter is included for. And for disclosure purposes, town staff has met with the Fate Family Limited Partnership in the past. As part of the annexation of this property, they had reached out to us asking us, what's going on? We want to be a part of the conversation too. And so we've had some good communications with that family regarding future development of their property down the road.
Perfect, thank you. Appreciate this clarification.
I had a question regarding that same subject. Is that land south of 58, south of this parcel, is that conservation easement, or it sounds like it may not be, or can you clarify that?
Absolutely. It's actually right in the middle of that gray area. It is the Fate Family Limited Partnership land is under a conservation easement. It's a 40-year conservation easement with about 17 years remaining on it. And at that point, they have the opportunity to reconsider that conservation easement or development options. And so my impression is that their family is trying to keep their options open to consider that when the time comes.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Yes, ma'am.
In the process, and I don't know if we talked about this way back last year, but in the process of this development and the number of houses that are included in this, was there any requirement by the school district in terms of a set aside or money paid in lieu in case there needs to be another elementary school once this is built out?
Yes, the school district responded that they didn't request any land set aside, that they asked for residential developments to pursue the payment in lieu of land. It's just a set dollar amount for each residential unit.
Yeah, I just couldn't remember.
Yeah.
And so, okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the school district is on our referral agency list. Every time we go through a public notice procedure, they're notified, and so they have additional opportunities to respond if they were to change their position on that matter.
Anybody else? I'm gonna get Mr. Roberson involved here if he doesn't mind coming up to the podium briefly.
Hi, everybody. My name is Darren Roberson. What a breath of fresh air not having Cody up here, right? So true.
And there goes the meeting.
Anyway,
Just quickly, Darren, on some of these lot sizes, I was just curious if you had an idea in mind for some of these like 4,000 and 5,000 square foot lots, what type of product you envision going on a smaller lot like this? Because that kind of is new to single family homes in Wellington. We don't really have single family lots in subdivisions quite that small.
Right. So what we're trying to do, guys, is just bring a different product to the town of Wellington, which I think you guys definitely need to make housing more attainable and affordable. We have Bassler Homes we're working with and a few other builders that have some product lines that can fit on those lots. Obviously, it makes it less expensive, more density. But we got a good mix. I mean, we got multifamily, we got larger single-family lots and the smaller single-family lots and alley load lots. So at least there's a wide mix of product lines that I think Wellington has not had at all over the last 20, 30 years of building. So we're trying to make it more diverse. So, and yet still, trying to get a mix of people that can rent, can be their first time home buyers or last time home buyers. And as the neighborhood grows, we'll keep the diversity going. That answer your question?
Yeah, yep, that's perfect. I'm just kind of curious that the 4,000 square foot lot is smaller than we've seen, at least since I've been on planning. So I was wondering if you had an idea of kind of
Yep.
what style or what product would go along.
And we actually toured Bassler's product last week, Cody Bird and I, with Kelly and staff so that they could kind of see a mix of product that we can bring.
Can you describe that?
I mean, it's a single family, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom,
Garage.
two car garage. Yeah. So it's just yes and no. I mean, still do a ranch. But again, I mean, a 1 bedroom, a 2 bedroom house doesn't need to have the width of a 50 or 60 foot wide lot. And the more lots we can put on the street, the street is still the street and the cost to build the street and the sewer and water is the same. So the more units we can put along the street can keep the prices down. So.
Are those smaller units, are they single story only or are they 2-story?
Well, it'll be a mix of both. Yeah.
Did you contemplate adding any multifamily into this phase one?
We're actually contemplating, depending on sewer capacity, of trying to bring in a site plan on either outlot A or B so that we can have that mix of product going at the same time.
That would be fantastic, in my opinion.
Yeah, and if I can
Yeah.
supplement what Mr. Roberson's saying too, in reference back to the approved plan unit development for Sage Farms, a lot of the multifamily was envisioned in the areas as outlot A, B, B, C, or D. No. A, it's A and B. But the plan unit development lays out, this first phase that Mr. Roberson's bringing through here is primarily for the single family attached and single family detached units, that the additional multifamily considerations in outlot A, which is next to GW Bush and the railroad tracks, could be townhomes, more attached units, could be apartments, but likely it looks like attached might be more fitting for this subdivision and for the scale of Wellington. So those densities were contemplated in the plan unit development, but they were not contemplated for the multifamily components in the filing one that Mr. Roberson's bringing through at this time.
So maybe I'm reading into what you're saying, but, and maybe this is bigger picture, right? And not necessarily today's issue at all, but with the multifamily, so there's a likelihood that you wouldn't put apartment buildings in there?
Wouldn't put apartment buildings?
Yeah, like things that are meant to be rented rather than meant to be owned.
That is not our goal, but either whatever we bring through, you'll be able to see the site plan as that comes through the same process that we're doing today.
Right,
So
the-
that's outside of what?
The zoning for, maybe I can go point to these areas too. So the zoning for this area, which is outlot A, this is outlot B, the zoning contemplates multifamily, which could be apartments, it could be single family attached, it could be single family detached. It's referring to the density, how many units are allowed, and those outlots have to go through subsequent approval processes. Those are just being identified for the area right now, and the phase one plat is the lots that you see now. These would go through a similar process in the future to lay it out for that product type.
And I understand that and I appreciate that. So my only comment, which has nothing to do with our decision tonight, is that based on the survey you just finished doing and all of that time, and one of the big glaring things is that there are not opportunities for rentals in this community, particularly for our younger folks, some of whom, including my son, are getting ready to graduate, for them to contemplate staying in this community. So as you move forward, I would just like for that to niggle in the back of your mind a little bit.
And we were absolutely looking at that product and product lines with multiple builders. Maybe even Hartford.
I think you have to leave now.
Yeah.
That's a build to rent.
Yeah.
I appreciate what you're doing. I love seeing this come forward. I had a similar question around multifamily, especially in light of the recent study that was done, and was also curious. I think I know the answer to this, but I was also curious why this was chosen as phase one versus that, and or including some commercial in the mix.
So we're absolutely considering the commercial in the mix. That'd be a separate site plan. What we need to do is we need to widen GW Bush, get the pump house going, get the single family established. We'll phase this single family into 7 or 8 different phases. Believe it or not, we are being pushed that, I mean, typically you won't see multifamily go in until single family goes in, because it kind of gives that buffer. And originally our goal was to let the single or the multifamily sit as outlots that are just established until we get the single family going. But we see the need that Wellington needs to bring in a product that's different and different than the single family. And so our goal is to bring in something that can be a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, or 3-bedroom units that, again, is more attainable for the market.
Right, the smaller.
Yep.
units.
And you'll, and a lot of it was off of sewer capacity too. So at one time, we didn't know we had sewer capacity. I know the town's looking at that. And if we have enough sewer capacity, right now, we know we have enough sewer capacity for the single family and the commercial parcel, or the single family and one of the multifamily parcels. But it sounds like that might be adjusted, which will then allow us to bring in more of the multifamily.
Can I clarify? I agree with what Mr. Rober's been saying. I think it might be beneficial to clarify what sewer capacity means in this context. As Planning Commission and the public knows, we've gone through a pretty extensive
Upgrade.
process of expanding our water reclamation facility. The sewer capacity that Mr. Roberson's referring to is in an existing trunk line or a pipe that's sized at 18 inches that can only accommodate so much flow. When we start to get into later phases of this project and the future development along Highway 1, that pipe size will have to be expanded, or an additional parallel line added to accommodate future growth. And that's the part that Mr. Roberson's referring to, is not the plant capacity, but the pipe capacity that we'll have to continue to evaluate as the phases come online.
That makes sense, and
Yeah.
that's super helpful. And I'm interested in the commercial piece too, sooner than later. Because that commercial benefit is beyond just this area, obviously, right? The whole town will benefit from that commercial.
And we're pursuing that. We've already got a realtor ready to go. We just don't want to promote it too soon until this phase goes. We already got a preliminary layout, but it all depends on who comes forward on that. We think the 9 acres will go quickly on the commercial. We're still in talks with UC Health also for County Road 58. So in fact, they reached out a couple weeks ago, which I advised Cody, so that hopefully we'll have a meeting soon on that. Again, we don't want to get everybody excited till we get closer to it, but our goal is to do the single family and the commercial. We would love to bring in a multifamily product also if we have the capacity in the line.
Yeah, I get it. And then my last question is around irrigation. I don't remember, is this potable, non-potable?
So we have 2 wells. So we'll have a non-pot system on, besides the non-pot system on the well, we're also going to have a lateral off of North Pooter, so that if, let's say, a well goes down, or I've heard what's going to happen if the wells go dry, well, we'll make sure we have North Pooter as a second alternative for our non-pot system.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Yep.
And I guess backtracking just a little bit, for some clarification too, on the very first page, you guys, the annexation on this, I think everybody was here for this. This was in January 2024.
Last year.
last year. So the wheels started turning on this over a year ago. And that's just when it came to us. The wheels actually started turning on this
2018.
several years before that. So these conceptuals have been in the works for a really long time. The multifamily push and the surveys and, the housing needs assessment, that has only really happened in about the last 6 months. So we have to be fair to the developer and not go back and try to retrofit something that everybody understands is a concern now. There's a lot of emphasis on it. There's a lot of pressure on it. But the foundation for this predates our focus on the multifamilies. So I think to bring it on in a second phase makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
He's expediting it, but not putting it ahead of something that's already been in the works for so long.
That's super helpful to you. And I think it will be important to message that properly to the community so that the community who wasn't around for these discussions, hasn't been involved in these discussions, won't think that this just popped out of thin air, right?
They always think it pops out of thin air.
I know,
Even
but
if
we
it's
can
been going
help.
on for 2 years.
I know.
And, oh, okay. And I appreciate the comments, Commissioner Sarter. If I can add, Chairman Sarter, my apologies. It's a C, I got it halfway. So Chairman Sarter, I think it's also important to recognize that, Mr. Roberson is traditionally a single-family home builder, and when he brought this through to staff for that initial conversation for annexation, we pointed to our comprehensive plan that had laid out a different land use pattern than what Mr. Roberson was used to. And in our comprehensive plan, we identified that we would like to see full-service master planned neighborhoods that included different diversity of housing types, multifamily and single-family commercial aspects. And so a lot of what our community's vision for our comprehensive plan and the land use surrounding the area that Mr. Roberson acquired was very different from the product that he's used to building. So we've started with our comp plan and said, this is what we'd like to see for our community, and started, for all intents and purposes, pushing Mr. Roberson in the direction that the town wanted to see that area develop. And so Mr. Roberson has been a very tremendously good partner in helping to achieve the community's vision for this area to be a comprehensive master plan community, to address the needs for different housing types, to add that commercial context, look at the infrastructure planning for these areas to accommodate that future growth, like the Fate family. We're in conversations now regarding infrastructure oversizing and phasing and timing of those infrastructure projects. So while there has definitely been a more immediate push on the multifamily and the need for rental products, this overall master plan vision is still moving in that right direction to provide that variety of housing, the different styles, the different price points. So it still would meet the town's vision for providing those. We just have to phase it based on market.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't ever want to seem ungrateful. I hope you know that.
What's-
I just want to meet the needs of my community, right? Like, that's why I'm here,
Absolutely, yeah.
right? And so always just food for thought. But here's my question. And again, I read this in a bowling alley all weekend. So my son plays bowling. Tell me about the traffic impact on GW Bush with these 200 plus houses. And are we putting in a light there, or?
So correct me if I'm wrong, but right now, with the last phase, the Sage Meadows going in on the 5th phase, once it's complete, it's already required that you guys do a traffic light at GW Bush and Highway 1. So we'll be paying our percentage, and we've done a traffic study on that. But it's already going to be required, I think, with the town of Wellington. And so we're in the process of getting bids and estimates with the town, or for the town.
Yeah, and I can corroborate that. As part of any development proposal, the developer has to provide the traffic impact study. We've received that study, we've evaluated it, we've even gotten a third-party traffic engineering group to take a look at that and give some recommendations. We agree that the warrants for a signal at GW Bush and Highway 1 are met. The timing of how that falls into CDOT's access control plan is a piece that we're still working with CDOT to figure out. In many ways, where some of when we talk about traffic studies, there's multiple warrants that have to be satisfied. And CDOT doesn't build it when the first warrant is met. They build it when all warrants are met to meet their criteria. And so we have to coordinate with them to make sure that we don't challenge their plans for what their standard criteria is. So the coordination piece is what we're working on with CDOT right now.
And are we looking at what that also will do to impact Highway 1 and County Road 58? While I know this doesn't immediately connect to that, eventually it will. But as someone who travels that particular area, it's treacherous now, right? And so I'm just thinking in terms of finishing out what you're doing right now, plus this, plus whatever future is happening. Are we trying to kind of make that piggyback so that safety
Yeah.
is still top of mind?
Yeah, so what we required at annexation was a transportation study that evaluated the entire project site, all 300 acres, and the expected level of impact from each of those. Commercial generates a different traffic loading than of residential, and multifamily is different than single family. So we have a master transportation infrastructure plan, or TIS, transportation impact study, that evaluated the entire site. Each phase that's brought forward for subdivision plat is being evaluated against the master plan to make sure that each phase meets its individual as well as the total.
Okay.
And in the first phase, our plan is to widen GW Bush along with the roundabout, along with the access into outlots so that it's going to be easier to bring on the multifamily as those are done. So.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for staff or the applicant?
All my questions were asked prior to, so, yeah, that they covered, this is everything I was looking for has been covered so far.
It's a successful meeting. Thank you, Commissioner Whitehouse. Okay, if we have nothing else, we'll go ahead and open it up to the public hearing. Just a reminder, anybody steps up to the podium, you'll have 3 minutes for the board. Just don't get engaged in back and forth questions. It's a chance for public to speak out and be heard. So we'll go ahead and formally open the public hearing. Anyone from the public wish to speak at the podium? Okay. Just state your name, if you would, real quick.
Hello, my name is Adam Albrecht. I am new to the community. I've been here since the beginning of August, so a lot of this is very new to me. My realtor didn't have a lot of information on all the development, so it's really nice to see the maps and kind of see what's going on. I live off the Cranesville Street, which is kind of backing up right to where all this is, phase 1 starting. And a couple questions that I had, one main one, is the regional park that is set to be down near this portion down near the bottom. Is there any opportunity that that could be moved to the north end of everything versus where it is currently? It just seems like, at least from my understanding, that it would serve more of the communities that are already there, plus the communities that are being built, because it's more centralized versus kind of on the southern side of everything. Just thought that it might be easier to access. And then also for the communities that are on the east side of the train tracks, there's really few spots to cross over to where the regional park would be on foot unless you were to go to George W. Bush and cross at that point. So if you were coming from the south side, having to come all the way up to that area to cross, then just to go all the way back down to the park, not saying that you wouldn't drive there, but it might be at least better serving of the entire community than what kind of, at least from my perspective, seems like it's serving what's coming versus what's here now. And that's really the only question that I had. Like I said, I don't know a whole lot about it. I'm kind of getting up to speed with everything. This is the first time I've come to a meeting. I got the letter in the mail and wanted to at least see what it was all about. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you for showing up too. That's half the battle, man. Thank you. Hang on. If there's nobody else, then we'll close public hearing. There's no one else wishes to speak. Okay, we'll close the public hearing portion. And then if staff or Darren would like to answer the question or just touch on it a little bit, you can step back up if you'd like. Thanks, Darren.
So I appreciate your comments. I think over the timeline of this development, we've allocated that, because of sewer drainage and the height of the farm. We don't have, we won't be able to do basements or any sewer. We'll have to have a lift station if we put houses more towards the south. That's kind of why we put the park down by the south of that area, going closer to our commercial area. But in the pipeline, we've also working with the town of Wellington, Cody, on purchasing 13 acres more up by the supermarket. Is it Cleveland and
Jefferson.
Or
and
Jefferson.
the railroad crossing.
Jefferson at the railroad crossing, to where we can do a trade of the 13 to 15 acres possibly with the town of Wellington. So that can be more of a community center and more of a community park, which we feel is a lot better than being on the northern end of our subdivision. So, you know, our park right now on the, is roughly 35 to 40 acres. That is a huge, massive park. So taking 13 acres out and giving more of a regional community center park, in the center of Wellington is, we think, is a better fit and a better trade-off. So hopefully that's a positive note. As regarding getting over to our community park, I know the town wants to try to work on an underground underneath the railroad tracks. We'll see if that happens and who's gonna pay for it. But it's good to walk, so, too. And that's why we'll have the trail system, so. That answers some of your questions or at least help?
Yeah,
Yep.
I think so. I guess if I can have a follow-up question to.
Oh,
Let's,
One.
yeah, if it's just one in your quick, sure, yeah, come on up, Adam.
Sure.
Don't want to discourage you on your first meeting.
Sorry.
No, you're okay.
No, just one follow-up question. So with regards to, I mean, I hear there's a lot of need for multifamily housing, or at least affordable housing. And I know housing prices are crazy right now, so that doesn't make anything easier. But would it be, or has it ever been considered to not have basement homes, to have homes with slabs? So then the square footage would be cut down, the construction costs would be cut down to some extent, and it could possibly make those homes, or at least some of the homes, more affordable. Not saying that they all have to be, but has that ever been considered just because of the land composition around here and the inability to build in certain areas based off of where the floodplain is or where the water table is?
Absolutely. So, and actually Basler is doing it right now. They're doing a no basement form foundation, to help keep costs down. And I think you'll see more and more builders are doing either crawl space or slab on grade. So
Yeah, there's about 18 units,
20.
20 units that are actively under construction or just recently finished that are on slab on grade.
And you
Yep,
guys,
so it's
Easy
active.
form?
yeah,
Is that what
that's what they're doing. You know what? I'm a builder too. I still like basements. But as you see it, I mean, crawl spaces are safer maybe, but, you guys have done the easy form too, correct?
we haven't done any on the single family. We've done it on the multifamily side, but it's definitely been in consideration for the single family
Keeping
side. The
costs down.
majority of it is moving towards crawl spaces just due to affordability on houses, so.
Yep. Yep. So you'll see a different mix coming in.
And Adam, always feel free to reach out to staff with follow-up questions too. They're really good about getting back. Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, I think you're good, Darren.
I just wanted to respond on the staff side real quickly too. I agree with what Mr. Roberson said. And I appreciate that he brought up the 13 acre consideration. That was significant in staff's ask initially, was because the 34 acres of open space and regional park that would be dedicated as part of this overall development project. We had concerns about it being located so far south. So that scale of a park relative to the rest of the community being further north spurred us to ask the developer for other considerations, including acquiring a strategic property that was more centrally located, to help accommodate that very concern. And so that is an option that the town is continuing to pursue with the developer. And then the pedestrian access comment was really well received too. We do struggle with a railroad that crosses right through the middle of our town. We want to make sure that pedestrian crossings across the railroad track are safe. And so we do look for grade separation, meaning underpass or overpass wherever we can. Our comprehensive plan had identified a possibly strategic location where there's some grade change along that railroad crossing. And we will continue to look for opportunities to create kind of a mid-mile cross point there for pedestrian and bike access. So I do appreciate the comments. They're very on point for this development and their possibilities that staff is continuing to pursue with the developer.
Anybody else have anything for staff or the applicant? Questions? Okay, anyone like to move to forward a recommendation?
I move to forward a recommendation to the Board of Trustees to approve the preliminary plat for Sage Farms Filing 1 as presented based on the findings for approval.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Scholite,
Yes.
Commissioner Stringer,
Yes.
Commissioner Knack,
Yes.
Commissioner Whitehouse,
Yes.
Commissioner
Yes.
Commissioner Carmen,
Yes.
Chair Sarter.
Yes. Approved. Congratulations, fellas. Okay,
Close.
it's close. I hate those nail biters. So there's a secondary portion to this just involving some of the literature in the PUD, I believe. So we'll have Cody back up to the podium quick and run us through that.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. We're getting the PowerPoint presentation pulled up here, hopefully with no audio issues that I was experiencing earlier. We apologize for that. So this is a second item. It's still a public hearing item. This particular request is related to the zoning, whereas you just considered a preliminary plat. That's the subdivision side. This is the zoning side. So when the original annexation was completed, it was approved with a planned unit development zoning map, which you see here on this slide. That was contemplated, and a lot of the base zoning, the underlying zone district, a PUD is an overlay, meaning it's in addition to or supplements the base zoning. A lot of the base zoning for this at the time it was approved was based on our land use code that had some different provisions and restrictions in it. And what we found, as this commission recently learned, due to housing affordability, we had some challenges with the variety of housing units, allowing different sizes, allowing attached and detached. And when we were reviewing this preliminary plat for the applicant here, we identified that while your zoning, your PUD actually has some of the language that we just removed out of the town's base zoning language, and that was restrictions. You can go to the next slide, please. I'll go over the findings in just a moment. What we found was that the language in the approved PUD was consistent with our old zoning code, but inconsistent with the direction and intent that we've moved things recently by restricting the number of units per building, or the number of units per alley in this case. So to highlight real quickly for the findings for a land use code amendment, we are processing this as a land use code amendment because it's the text of what is allowed in that zoning. We didn't process it as a rezone because we're not changing it from a PUD. It's still a PUD. It's just changing the numeric standards of the approved PUD. So the findings that we consider for a code amendment is that it's not likely to result in significant adverse impacts on the natural environment, that the amendment is necessary for the protection of health and safety and welfare, that the amendment's consistent with the comprehensive plan and the intent statements of the land use code, and that the amendment is consistent with any prior approvals or official plans and policies for those areas. So these are detailed more fully in your staff report, but staff did find that our recommendation is that those criteria, the findings, are satisfied with this request. And now, where I jumped the gun earlier, I'll circle back to the more detailed specifics of the request. You see in this single family A area, the designation in this box that's got the red box around it. The text says that single family detached dwellings, including up to 6 single family detached dwellings accessing an alley, and including up to 6 attached dwelling units, implying 6 is the maximum. And if you relate back to the preliminary plat that Ms. Lenore and Mr. Roberson just presented, there were a couple of blocks I'll switch to in a minute that have more than 6 that under the base zone or under the PUD zoning would not be allowed. And that was not the intent of the recent code changes for the town. It's not the intent of the product lines that Mr. Roberson and potentially other builders are bringing to market right now. So it warranted the request for this change. you can see in this blue dialog box here, this is the new language that would replace the bullet number 2 and 3 in that red box there. So it's simply restating that single-family detached are allowed, single-family attached dwellings are allowed. It just no longer has the limitation up to 6 units. Next slide, please. And here you can see that the red box on this image highlights the 2 blocks where those alley loaded lots are located, where you can see that there's up to 7 units attached and up to 28 units accessing the alley. This is a very reasonable lot and block design in terms of allowing different product types. It still fits within the overall transportation flow of the neighborhood. It allows that flexibility without impairing the health, safety, welfare of good neighborhood block concepts. But this configuration would not be allowed without the request to amend the text of the PUD. So we did find that those findings were satisfied in terms of health, safety, welfare, good design, good block concepts, and it wouldn't be a detriment to the environmental considerations. There's still single-family homes. The density doesn't change the density of the PUD. It's just allowing up more than 6 units attached or 6 units accessing a single alley. And the other findings for consistency with the comprehensive plan still fits within the intended land use intent for the comp plan, the intent statements of the land use code, the intent statements of the approved planned unit development, and changing that numeric limitation doesn't substantively change the intent of the overall PUD. Next slide, please. So staff's recommendation here was to approve these minor changes to the numerics, just basically eliminating that limitation on 6 dwelling units per acre or 6 dwelling units attached and 6 dwelling units per alley. So our staff recommendation is to approve this, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions regarding this change to the PUD.
Actually, I have a question kind of on this, on a side note, on your slide that shows the proposed amendments.
Mhm.
It says on here, and is this proposed amendments to the PUD language, not our development standard language, right?
Correct. To the
So these don't mirror each other? My point being, what I noticed in D, development standards is minimum side setback of 5 feet for detached units, which is 2 feet less than what the town requires in our land use code. Was that part of what we approved before? Because I don't recall that.
So yes, so
Because I wouldn't have ever voted for that. That's why I'm asking.
well, some of our land use code allows 5-foot setbacks in other zone districts, like R4 allows 5-foot setbacks. 7 foot is standard in other zoning districts for setbacks.
But this is an R3 zone, correct?
It's a planned unit development.
I guess I'm missing where that can't happen. I guess that's fine. I just,
Let me go back to the question. I want to make sure we're answering the question. Maybe with a little bit of background will help too. So when we approved the annexation for Sage Farms, it included the zoning district designation for planned unit development. And a planned unit development is an overlay zone, meaning it takes, here's what the standard baseline zoning requires, and here is how we're accomplishing above and beyond the base zoning. So the PUD for Sage Farms contemplated the R3 zone doesn't allow some of these product types that we would otherwise want to see in a diverse mixed-use community that allows a variety of housing types. Those considerations were not allowed by the R3 zoning. So we supplemented it with the overlay district to allow different densities, different housing types, different lot sizes, narrower streets. We supplemented it by saying, here's the provisions that apply to this development proposal. And in that PUD approval for Sage Farms, it laid out can you maybe go back to the PUD zone slide? It highlighted that there are areas within the overall development that are intended for different purposes. So that large yellow area was the single family A. It's a base zoning of R3 and supplemented by those district provisions on the PUD document to say this is what goes above and beyond to meet the needs of this development proposal. Oh, you're at a different presentation. Pulled up the other slides. I'll give you a minute. Thank you. And so what the request now is saying, we're looking back at the overall, it's not changing the base zoning, it's still, the base zoning is still R3. It's not changing the overall PUD, so those development standards are still in place, those still affect the lots as applicable. The change is limited to, we don't want to restrict the number of units per building to 6. We want to allow it to be more than that. And we don't want to allow, or we don't want to restrict the number of units that can access an alley to 6. We want to allow more units to access a single alley.
Okay. So back to my original question, which is the slide that shows the proposed amendments and this snapshot of the standards that includes where it calls out the 6 single-family detached dwellings, and we want to change that. And at the bottom, for this R3 district, I understand it's a PUD and it's an overlay. We allowed for the change of the minimum side setback in an R3 district development standard to go from 7 feet to 5 feet when we originally approved this. It was in all the little words on all the paper that we couldn't read very well. That place said that it could be 5 feet instead of 7.
The approved PUD allows a setback, side yard setback of 5 feet.
And that writing was on the plans that were submitted at that time.
Correct. The only
That's
changes,
incredibly unfortunate. Okay, thank you.
we have 5-foot side yard setbacks in our R4 zone as well. And remember, it's 5 foot on both sides of the property line, which still ensures 10 feet of separation, which meets building codes.
So by allowing more than 6 single-family detached dwellings with a rear alleyway, that allows for that many more, because rear alley tend to accommodate closer houses, right? Like that just seems to be how that goes. So we will have houses 10 feet apart for more than 6 houses at a time down a street, right?
You might be mixing multiple topics.
Well, I guess it's fine. But I'm just not happy that we allowed for a 5-foot side setback in a community that's incredibly windy, given the things that we've seen and should have learned from in the past and things that happened in the state. And as I said, had I realized that, I never would have been okay with it. So I guess my question to you is, what is the risk that we run in changing this amended, the amendment that's being requested? It was set to 6 for a reason, and we're changing it. So we know the upside, what's the downside? Are we putting anybody at risk by doing that?
I don't believe that there's any risk in doing this. If you consider that a lot of the language here on bullet number 3 is referring to the number of single-family attached units in one building. When you have more than 3, you have to be fire separated. So like the separation under the building code requirements is creating that measure of safety. So the setback doesn't even apply to the single-family attached units. The number of units that can access an alley, the alleys are proposed at 20 feet plus a 5-foot setback per the PUD from that. So that's 30 feet between the back sections. So that's not any risk that's different than any other district in the town in terms of fire separation. So the proposed changes here don't affect the spread of fire risk any more than any other district in town.
Well, outside of fire, I guess my question is, as a community, we set the wording at 6, right? Like this is our standard language, and we're changing it for this development, right?
Not quite. So let's break that down a little bit, because I think I see maybe where you're heading. So when this was originally adopted, the PUD, when the PUD was originally adopted, a lot of the language was mirroring what the town's criteria included, and the town's land use code criteria included limitations on the number of units that could be attached. We've recently just removed that limitation through our land use code process. Part of the housing needs assessment and affordability assessment, we identified we need some different diversity, we need to allow different flexibility, and we've removed from several code sections a limitation on the number of units per building.
And that came in front of this board or no?
A couple of months ago.
I must have missed that meeting. Okay.
It came to the planning commission a couple of times in a couple of different meetings, a couple of public hearings. And so a lot of what that change resulted in was removing that restriction on the number of units per building, because we have building codes that address the safety of those structures. And so this language mirroring the old town language is no longer consistent with the intent of the housing needs assessment and study. It's not consistent with the land use code changes that we just made that are applicable across all of town. And it limits the block design significantly for those couple of blocks for how many units could be there. And so that was what kind of spurred the overall request, was to take a look at why does that limitation of 6 per unit or 6 per, 6 per building or 6 per alley, does that actually achieve any stated goal or vision? And it does not.
Okay. Thanks.
Anyone else? While Cody's up there? Okay. Just for clarification, we do need to open this back up to a public hearing, correct?
We do, correct.
Okay, all right.
And so we should also request if there's any conflicts of interest or ex parte communications, it's good practice to do that for each public hearing. So I'll restate that question.
None.
None.
Very good. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Bird.
Anything you want to share as the applicant?
Not to open it back up, but I think your concern was the 5-foot setbacks on the residential, which, tell me if I'm wrong, but Windsor's 5-foot setbacks. Tinmouth is 5-foot setbacks on single-family houses. And so I think that's why we brought it forward with the town of Wellington a year ago, so.
We actually have in Fort Collins, we have some lots that are 3-foot setbacks.
Yeah. So-
Side from yard to yard, so there is literally
Yep,
6
6
feet
foot.
between houses. But again, there's the fire separation either on the build side or it's a sprinkler system
Yep.
inside the house.
So,
I understand that. And with all due respect, I get it, but this isn't either of those places. And the reason why I say that is because it is way windier here, way windier. It's like 30-mile-per-hour winds here, and you go to Windsor and there's no wind. This is a crazy windy place, and it's something that I care about. I know a lot about construction. I worked in it for 30 years. The safety of my community is what matters to me. Superior, I'm sure, thought that they were fine. Louisville, I'm sure they thought they were fine, and they weren't. And so as a planning commissioner, I take that really seriously. I understand that's already approved. I don't like it. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
And I care about the safety. It's done, right? I think that you do a great job. I know you put out a great project. I have a lot of respect for you. My job is to watch out for my community.
thank you.
Okay, thanks, Darren. Anybody else? We'll go ahead and formally open public hearing on this topic. Anyone from the public wish to get their 3 minutes in at the podium? Okay, Adam, thanks. Okay, seeing none from the public, we will close the same. Okay, I don't know if there's any additional follow-up after that we need to go through, or if we're ready to.
I don't have any closing remarks. I'm happy to respond to any additional questions the commission may have, but at this point, I think it's open for your deliberations.
I just want to ask a clarifying question. This change is limited to that smaller product. It's not across all single-family attached, detached in that development, right? It's what you highlighted on the slide. It's that, just that one section.
So the way a zone change works, I can come back up there. So thanks for the question, Commissioner Carmen. So the way a code change like this works, or a text change of a PUD, it applies to all the areas that are affected by that single family A zone. So that slide, the PowerPoint presentation slide that showed the yellow areas for the single family A, everything affected by single family A has to follow the same provisions. And so this change affects the yellow areas on that map.
I thought I saw in there was one area specifically that was highlighted within the yellow. So you're saying that it's all the areas, not just that one area that was highlighted.
Yeah, so if you think about this similar to the land use code, that's why this is processed as a land use code amendment. It's affecting the text of that specific district. So the single family A is that district of the planned unit development. So all the language underneath single family A is what governs development of the single family A, or that yellow area. You don't pick and choose, it's this one or that one. We could do that by creating new districts.
Can we pull the slide back up? Because you had one slide where you specifically highlighted one area. So I just want
Yeah.
to make sure I understand what the
Sure.
point of that was.
Yeah, we'll pull it back up. So it's a circle around the single family A, intended to illustrate it's this area, not the outlots, not the purple areas, not the blue areas or the green areas. It's single family A. Saying we circled the label.
No, keep going.
Oh, you're talking about on the preliminary plat?
It's the,
Oh, I'm sorry. So,
it's a,
yep,
it's
so
the
on.
box around the
so-
alley loaded
So this one,
products.
yeah, so this slide is,
Everything outside of that red box, is single family. But only that red box is what was highlighted.
correct. So, and this slide is illustrating, these are the blocks that are not allowed with that text in place. The other areas of the single family A, the other lots outside this red box are still subject to the same district provisions. The developer in this plat is not proposing the need for the alley, the number of units per alley on those other blocks because they have access to public streets.
Got
They're not proposing attached products on the larger lot sizes,
Got
they'd
it,
be
got it, got it,
detached
got it.
products.
Okay. that
So,
helps.
so this box was really just highlighting on the proposed plat, these blocks would not work under the existing provisions.
Right. So of all of the single family housing that's on the plat, it's following our standard R3 provision because they're a different product. Only these are the ones that would not be allowed, therefore the need for the change in the text.
Correct. For this filing, there are future filings for other subdivision plats for later phases might run into the same issue. So all the areas that are covered by that yellow on the PUD, they would also be eligible for alley load concepts, single family attached. If the existing language remains, blocks like this layout wouldn't be allowed.
And while I suspect it would be unlikely that you would have a complete section with those smaller products, it would be possible.
Subject to all the other approvals, the densities and everything else. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, thanks for clarifying. I appreciate you walking me through that.
If there's nothing else, anyone have a motion to approve the recommendation?
I move to forward a recommendation to the Board of Trustees to approve the proposed text amendments to Sage Farms PUD as presented based on the findings for approval.
Second,
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Shalai,
Yes.
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 Commissioner Whitehouse,
Yes.
Commissioner McCaffrey,
Yes.
Commissioner Carmen,
No.
Chair Starter.
Yes. Okay. I think that wraps up our new business and everything for Sage Farms filing. We're good there. Staff has some communications we'll run through real quick. Mr. Byrd?
My communications are pretty limited. What I would encourage the commission, our next meeting is June 2nd. And we do have a plat scheduled for that meeting, so it would be another public hearing item. So we hope that you will carve out some time in your schedule to be available for the June 2nd meeting.
Do you have the inventory report prepared for tonight or no?
Oh, thank you for that reminder. I didn't, with my computer challenges, I didn't
That's
have it
okay.
open anymore. We did include in the packet just the quarterly update on residential building permit activity and the lot inventory status. You can see the economy has definitely impacted the number of residential permits that have been issued in Wellington this year. We hope that that kind of comes back a little bit in the future here as things kind of shake out. But at the moment, we're a little bit slow, and our pipeline for future projects is a little bit slow. We have 59 buildable lots in town. So some additional infrastructure for future developments will help keep that pipeline alive and keep the revenues coming in.
Just a point of information. You said how many, I'm looking, I think, on the final page of the, no, it's not. I thought it said 64 buildable lots, or is that That would be on page 100 of the packet.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitehouse. I couldn't recall the number offhand. It is 64 at the time of the report was generated. We've since issued a couple more permits. I think I might have had a newer number in my head.
I didn't understand the
Yeah.
difference, that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification. And the report at the time it was written in April, there were 64 buildable lots left.
Better get cracking on some infrastructure. Yes. A different subject.
Yeah, just a quick question.
Uh,
It's an easy one.
uh,
How difficult would it be when you're doing, when you, like for this or whatever, where I had the question about the traffic survey to maybe just list like who the referral agencies were and whether they declined to comment or whatever as an added part of our report. I find it to be really helpful.
So if I understand correctly, just a listing of who receives the TIS for review.
Well, no. Okay, I'll give you an example. In my other role, when, say like when there's something that's going on that's within the vicinity of Wellington or whatever, one of the very first things I do is go to look and see if the town of Wellington was asked for comments on whatever the submittal is, right? To see whether or not that agency responded so that I know and that's the same for Berthoud or whomever, but I always want to know what the affected town, what their comments were, along with the other agencies when considering an overall proposal. But I can easily go to look and see who all the referral agencies were and whether or not they responded. So if it says the town of Wellington didn't respond, then I'm not plowing through my packet looking for whatever you had to say about it. Does that make sense? And so I'm wondering if is that a big lift to just say, these are the agencies we referred, whatever the submittal is to the planning commission. And if, they either commented and it's attached or they chose not to submit any comments.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying. I understand where you're going. I don't think it's a big lift. We traditionally include in those information in the packet if we get responses. If we don't include anything because we didn't get anything. In this particular instance, and we can work on this in the future, we did refer it to the traffic particularly, we've referred to CDOT and Larimer County, and they gave us feedback that we're going to address during the final plat stage, so their comments would come back in the final plat. They requested more information. Here's our standards, please adhere to these standards, which is common practice. So we can definitely take a look at that for final plat considerations and include any responses we get back from referral agents in the final plat packet.
Okay, it was just something that makes, to me, I don't know, it makes it a little bit easier to try to guess. Did we send it to these people and they didn't comment? Because if it's not included and there's not a list to say whether or not, then you're kind of wondering, right? And then you're
Yeah.
asking the question and all of that kind of
Right.
thing.
And we do a similar thing because we mail notices to all the adjacent property owners within 500 feet. You don't want that list.
Nope.
But we
nope.
do, when we get
But
feedback.
agencies, yes.
But when we
like-
get feedback, we include it in the packet. So we're already doing that, and we can take a look at how we do the utility and agency referrals too.
Okay, just a suggestion. You don't have to do it.
Thanks for the comment. That's helpful.
Anything else from staff?
I don't have any other announcements at this time. Thank you.
Perfect. Anything else from the board? Beautiful. Adjourned.